name is Amar Hilmani, and I will be here hosting this event today. Before we get started, I just wanted to bring to your attention that throughout the pandemic, Wafa House has remained open and continued to provide support when most agencies have shut their doors, providing aid such as food, diapers, housing, medication, legal services, and bilingual self care, all at no cost to the community. We are one of the only agencies in the tri state area that provide culturally sensitive staff who offer a multitude of services to the Middle Eastern, Muslim, Arabic, and Turkish communities. In a time where many undocumented community members are being turned away from support, Wafa House welcomes them with open arms. Please join us for 30 days of virtual events, streaming live via our social media platforms, and donate now. I will provide you the link in the comments section, and thank you to everyone in advance for your support. For today's event, we will be talking about sexual assault, signs, symptoms, and impact. I would like to now introduce our guest speaker, Barbara Samaan. Thank you so much for joining us today, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, so today we're going to talk about sexual assault. Sexual assault, sexual abuse. I want to touch on both, and there's a difference. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to go through some definitions. The first thing I will do. So sexual assault refers to any sexual contact or behavior that is I'm sorry, any sexual contact or behavior without explicit consent of the victim. And I think the reason that they use explicit, we'll talk about in a second, because it doesn't. We'll talk about it in a second. So that would include like attempted rape, fondling, or unwanted sexual contact, touching, forcing a victim to perform oral, anal, vaginal sex. That would be included in sexual assault. Rape is a form of sexual assault, but not all sexual assault is rape. Okay. Rape is like it's a legal definition that means penetration is occurring. And that again can be oral, anal, or vaginal. Okay. So force. Okay. We use the word explicit because force does not just have to be like, force does not always have to refer to physical force. It could be like emotional coercion or psychological force or manipulation, anything to coerce a victim into non-consensual sex. So anything to force a victim to have sex, and that doesn't always have to be. It doesn't have to be just force. For example, someone might say, if this happens a lot, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to hurt you or hurt your family. Talk about your reputation, etc. Talk about your reputation is a big one in the Middle Eastern community, I believe. Say that we had sex even though we didn't. It's a big one. Okay. Okay. So that's force. A perpetrator refers
If
to
you
any.
don't mind me asking really quick, Barbara, what is the difference between sexual assault and sexual abuse?
Okay, I'm going to get to that actually. So let's go back. Let's go to that. So sexual abuse has to do with a child adolescent, okay, and an adult. So a child adolescent, okay, any contact or interaction. I don't know why I have to do this perfectly. Any contact or interaction that has to do
Okay.
with a child and adolescent. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Child, adolescent. Okay.
I can hear you. I think it might be lagging on my end a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So sexual abuse has to do with child, adolescent, and adult. So coercing a child or adolescent to have sex, that would be the difference. Sexual assault has to do with adults. Sexual abuse with kids. Although a kid can be also sexually assaulted or raped. But usually what the term for kids is sexual abuse. Sexual assault is more for adults. There's two forms of sexual contact or sexual abuse with kids. There's what's called sexual contact, which is physical. That means I am physically doing something, whether I'm physically touching the child. There's another form called sexual interaction, okay? And that's not easy, like, to define, but it would be like, for example, well, actually, pornography. I'm showing a child pornography. I am I am commenting on a child's body. I am watching a child get undressed. So those would be sexual interactions. I'm exposing myself to a child.
Could
Okay?
this be done also, for example, via social media?
Yes. It could be, yep, digital, you know, sending a picture of you naked to a child, asking a child to send you a picture naked, um, and so forth. Yeah, and it's, with Facebook and Instagram, maybe not with Instagram, but Facebook, I know definitely this has occurred.
For a fact, we see this a lot on all different social media platforms, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, especially right now, is very, very big. Twitter, you name it.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Okay, so we got into, so sexual contact again is physical. Sexual interactions is more, you know, verbal. Verbal. Um, a child can never consent to sexual activity. So a child can never consent to sexual activity. A child is a child. Um, when a perpetrator engages a child in sexual activity or those sexual interactions, it is a crime. Um, and again, it doesn't need to be physical contact. I can just show a child pornography. That is a crime. Some forms of sexual abuse. I mean, I think we talked a lot about this: fondling, intercourse, sex of any kind, exposing myself, masturbating in front of a child, obscene phone calls, text messages, um, sex trafficking, forced prostitution, um, producing, owning, or showing a child pornography. Um, Actually, also, female genital mutilation is considered sexual abuse, and inspecting for virginity can even be called sexual abuse. That's from a source, a Middle Eastern source. Sexual abuse is about control and power. It's not. Um, um, you know, I think we've kind of covered all of this. Okay, so let's go to statistics. Okay, so this is for women. So now we're going to talk about sexual assault statistics. 1 in 4 women experience sexual violence by an intimate partner. That means by someone she's dating, by someone she's involved in. 8 of 10 completed rapes, the victim knows the perpetrator. So 8 out of the 10 rapes that happen, people know the majority. So it's not by strangers. And this is for adults. 8 out of 10 we know. Okay. Okay, according to a study, 1.3 women are sexually abused or raped or sexually assaulted every minute. Okay. Rape or sexual assault is the crime that's most not reported. So it's one of the violent crimes that's is most not reported. It's only estimated that 16% of rapes are reported. Okay. Okay. For children, now we're going to go into sexual abuse, okay, statistics. 70% of all reported sexual assaults occurred with children under the age of 17. So 70% of the sexual assaults with children are with children. 1 in 4 boys and 1 in 6, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. That's a very scary statistic. Now, I suspect it's more. I suspect that it's even more than that. 12.3% of women were age 10 or younger at the time of their first rape or victimization. So imagine that 12.3 were younger than 10, and 30% of those were people between the ages of 11 and 17. So we have, that's most reported. That's the ones that are reported. The younger the victim is, the more likely it is that the abuser is a family member. So the younger the victim, the more likely it's a family member. Of those molested, 50% of those molested under the age of 6, 50% were molested by family members. Family members also account for 23% of sexual abuse between the ages of 12 to 17. Okay. This is for Middle Eastern. So I did look at statistics from the Middle East, although I got to be honest, I don't think that they're more. The studies that I looked at, they said that this is probably not accurate. The number is more than this. So we talked about this one last time. 37% of all Arab women have experienced some form of violence. In some countries, the rate increases to reach 70% of women experience sexual violence. 70%. So that's like in some countries, in some Middle Eastern countries. 133 million women experience female sexual mutilation that are alive today. So 133 million women have experienced genital sexual mutilation today. 92% of girls between the age of 15 and 49 have experienced female genital mutilation in Egypt. Okay, 700 million women alive today have been married under the age of 18, and 14% of those are Arab. Okay, I think that's going to be my last statistics. The only other thing that I thought was interesting is that rape was shown leniency in Morocco if the perpetrator married their victim. But in 2014, that was changed because a rape victim was forced. A perpetrator married his victim and she committed suicide. So the Article 475 was repealed. And that's in Morocco. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip through this because I think we can go on. Okay. So recognizing the perpetrator. It's 96% of, when we're looking at perpetrators, 96% of them are male. 76% of them are married. And 76.5 are adults. So some older children sexually abuse younger children. Okay. Okay. And as we said before, we said 80% of women know the person that sexually assaulted them. With children, it's 93% of children are sexually abused by known abusers, whether that is a family friend, a relative, family friend, or a teacher coach. 93% know their abuser. Okay. So let's look at symptoms. Now that we got this over with, let's look at symptoms. Okay, the first one is I'm gonna group them. It's re-experiencing the trauma. Okay, so that can be flashbacks, which is I'm gonna go right back to that feeling, that same reaction I had with the trauma. I'm not only gonna have a memory, but I'm gonna have a physical response as well. The other one is intrusive memories. So that's kind of memories that come up anytime. The other one is nightmares. Having nightmares would be another one.
Would this all constitute as PTSD?
Yeah, this would be considered PTSD. Okay. So emotional, psychological responses, anger itself, for others, it's usually anger itself. I am at fault. If only I did this. It's all my fault. Feeling numb or disconnected, and that would be like detached, like withdrawn, not having any feelings. That's also a defense. Physical reactions, irritable behavior or angry outbursts, like all of a sudden I see my child be irritable or angry, or even as adults. These happen as adults as well. So this is PTSD is for children, adults as well. Um, Reckless or self-destructive behaviors. Usually that's cutting, that's suicidality, that's alcohol and drug use. So those things, that's reckless or self-destructive behaviors. Being easily startled. So if anyone touches me, I'm startled. I have a hyper startle response. Okay. Avoidance. I'm going to avoid talking about or remembering the trauma because it brings up more negative feelings. I'm also going to avoid places or people or things that remind me of the trauma. So, for example, let's say the trauma happened at a friend's house. I'm no longer, I'm going to avoid that place. Or the trauma happened at a relative's house. I'm going to avoid that place. Okay. Emotional, psychological responses. We have fear and anxiety. Again, I said this last time when we were talking about more trauma. I said the fear and anxiety could even be worse than what occurred at that moment. So it can be worse than even, actually, when someone's traumatized anyway, they're in shock. But the fear and anxiety can set in and it can be even worse, again, than what it had originally been. Sadness, depression. By definition, most people, when they come in for sexual abuse, sexual assault, they're depressed. Actually, that's probably the first thing that they're reporting to me. Before they even say to me, I'm having flashbacks. So sadness, depression is one. Guilt, shame. Not only guilt, but shame. I am awful. Something is wrong with me. It's all my fault. So that's also an experience. Physical reactions, hypervigilant or being on guard. So that means I'm always looking around, always hyper aware of what's going on. Problems with concentration. I can't concentrate on anything, whether it's work or school. I'm not able to concentrate. Sleep disturbance. I'm not sleeping. Insomnia, nightmares. That's usually the case. Change in cognitions or perceptions, and I'm going to quickly go through these. Inability to remember different parts of the trauma, and that is actually a defense. I'll tell you why. Because if I remembered all of the trauma, it might be too much for me. I might fragment, and that's what's called dissociation. That's even a more severe thing. But so our brains, you kind of gives us spurts of little things that have happened, but not the whole thing right away. Sometimes in therapy, I'll hear one part of it. The next day, I'll hear another part of it. If it's a prolonged period, I'll hear, it would be out of order. One day this is what came up for me. The next time I saw someone, something different would come up, and that's okay. That actually the brain is protecting, self-protective. Difficulty trusting self or others, especially if I've been sexually assaulted as an adult, and as a child even. But as an adult, I'm not trusting myself. I'm not trusting, I'm not trusting myself. I'm not trusting other people. As a child, the world is not safe. I'm not, again, difficulty trusting. It's interesting though, because it's not only, sometimes when people do trust, it's kind of the same pattern. So it's, I'm, I'm going to be attracted to another abuser, might be the fear, but actually that does occur. Okay. Negative beliefs. I am bad. I am dirty. The world, the world is unsafe. Seeing self as weak or adequate. There's something wrong with me. Distorted sense of blame. It's all my fault. Again, I think as Middle Easterns, we blame the victim a lot. We've got to be careful. We've got to really be careful with that. So already the victim feels at fault. And that's not right. That's incorrect. The victim didn't deserve to be abused. I don't care um, if they were, first of all, if it's a child, like there's no excuse for that. Like, but sometimes we say, well, she was more so the Egyptian or the Middle Eastern community will say, well, she shouldn't have been wearing that, or she shouldn't have been walking there. That's ridiculous.
Or what did she do to make him want to
Oh, that's even a big.
stay? What
That's
did
even a bigger one. Yes, Amar, I love that. That's a big. That comes up more often with Middle Easterns too. What did she do? Um, with adults, that comes up, but and that's frustrating. But also with children, if I'm having a child report something to me, and the mom comes in, and I'm helping the child tell the mom, and the mom says, "You must have done something," or "What did you do? You must have wanted it." How awful is that message? Putting blame for an adult's behavior on a child. And what could
absolutely,
the child have done? Huh? I'm sorry.
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So we talked about what we talked about was PTSD, and what could have the adult done either. No one deserves to be sexually assaulted or raped or abused. We talked about like PTSD. Let me tell you long-term effects. Long-term effects, depression, definitely. Body and eating disorders, specifically bulimia. I'm so disgusted, I want to throw it out. There's a big connection between rape, sexual abuse, and bulimia. Very big connection. Substance abuse disorders, that's self-explanatory. I don't want to remember. I don't want to deal with this, so I'm going to drink or use drugs. Anxiety or somatic concerns. Anxiety is definitely a big one. I don't trust. The worst has happened to me. I don't trust anything. I'm always going to think of what the worst case scenario can be. Somatic complaints, especially with children, a lot of the times they come in with headaches, stomach aches. Um, Usually, there's no physical reason. That's psychological. Whether it's trauma, whether it's anxiety, there's something going on. I always notice this with children or adults even who's been sexually assaulted, or children that have been sexually abused. They become obsessive. They have OCD. They develop OCD because they didn't have control of the situation. So they find ways of controlling different things. So OCD is kind of a disorder of control. Um, Self-destructive behaviors or suicidality, whether it's an adult or a child, cutting, suicidal behavior is going to be something that comes up or may come up. Obesity and health problems, um, one of the things that happens when a child or an adult is raped, both, okay, is that I'm going to either eat too much or not eat it. There's going to be a weight gain or weight loss. Usually it's weight gain. I don't want anyone to look at me. I feel horrible about myself. Also, change in hygiene, by the way. So, obesity and health problems are something that comes up. Personality disorders, that's more of an issue, and that comes with complex trauma. So, if a young child has been sexually abused, especially with a family member for a prolonged time, usually they're going to develop a personality disorder, which is something that is a little bit more intensive to treat in therapy. Sexual dysfunction also can occur. Okay, let me keep going. So I put this slide together, and I know you don't have the slides, but um, the most, the biggest, I'm sorry, the most sexual abuse and sexual assaults happen teenage years. And even when I looked at the Middle Eastern statistics, it's teenage and young adults, and that's primarily what I see. So why? Adolescents take more risks, so they're probably more prone to. They're going to go to a party. They might leave with someone that they shouldn't be leaving with. They're more risky. So they're not gonna, and they're impulsive. They're not gonna think through their actions as much. Um, Adolescents, their brain is not fully developed. They're more, what do they call it? they're more fluid and flexible. So that might be another reason why trauma and sexual abuse occurs more at that age. And also, adolescents have secretive lives. They don't want their parents knowing anything. So again, they're not going to check much out with their parents. They're not going to check much out, maybe with their friends, but not definitely not with their parents at this time. So that's why really the biggest age where this happens is like 12 to 17. Okay. Okay. Possible signs of sexual abuse and assault. This is more for adolescents and adults. I didn't do the young child ones, but there's definitely different ones for young children. Um, and some of them also kind of overlap. Sudden weight gain or loss, big one for adolescents and adults. You see a sudden weight gain or loss, there's something going on, and that's one that's really connected. Um, Also, a change in eating patterns. I mean, that's connected as well. Change in hygiene. All of a sudden, I'm not taking care of myself. Big one to look into. Change in sleep patterns, nightmares, insomnia, that stuff. Withdrawn or depressed. No, they no longer want to do anything. They stay in their room. They isolate. They refuse to do. Again, adolescents, adults, same thing. They become withdrawn. They don't want to go out with their friends. Something's going on there. Change in academic or work performance. It's good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So change in academic or work performance would be another one. So all of a sudden, if I'm missing a lot of work, or I'm skipping school, or I'm not doing my work, that's something to look into. Anger, irritability. All of a sudden, if you have a quiet child, or like not a quiet child, or someone who changes personalities and becomes, starts flipping out about things, again, that's also connected. Alcohol and drug use is another one. One thing also I see, and I didn't put it on the slide, but if someone becomes, again, either not interested in anyone, and not interested in any men or any, and I'm saying men, but vice versa, it can be women. I've seen that. Or like not interested, no sex drive, or promiscuous on the other extent. So you'll see the two extremes, and both are connected. Because I feel like I'm not worth anything, so why not? Okay. So I want to go into, I put this in as impact on self, impact on interpersonal relationships, impact on future marital relationships or current marital relationships. I wanted to go into this, and again, this is again for more of the adolescent adult population. Guilt and shame. There's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something wrong. I feel remorse. Shame is I am bad. I am dirty. Do you see the difference? Guilt is more guilt is kind of object, like I did something, I feel sorry for it. Shame is more of I am defective. I am horrible. So both of them come up with sexual abuse. The one I'm concerned about more is shame, definitely. So, for example, also another big thing is I just want to hide myself. I'm unreachable. I am just so internalized, and so I don't want anyone to see me. I'm going to think of myself in terms of strength. I am weak. That's how someone who's been sexually abused or assaulted feels. In terms of dependence and independence, I am powerless. That's the message. I cannot control anything. In terms of sense of self, I am different than everybody because I'm defective. There's something wrong with me. In terms of physical attractiveness, I'm ugly and deformed. In terms of sexuality, again, something is wrong with me. Another one, I am dirty. That's a big one. Okay. Okay. So shame, powerlessness, is a big one in terms of, the impact on self. Impact on interpersonal relationships. So these are friendships. Okay. So I'm going to have difficulty with trust. but also I'm going to have issues with my boundaries. Okay. And this is how. Okay. It's first of all, I'm going to be passive. It's difficult to ask for what I want. Okay. It's hard to say no. I can't say no to anyone. Um, it's hard to make decisions. Relationships are one way, and that means the abused goes above and beyond. So relationships are one way. Usually the abused really goes above and beyond. It's easier to care for others than self. So I view myself as worthless. I view myself as weak. I view myself as something is so wrong with me. Therefore, I'm going to care about others more than I'm going to care about myself. And that's why I'll go above and beyond for others, but I won't do anything for myself. So what happens is when I have these thoughts, I'm going to get into what I'm going to call exploitive relationships, meaning, people who are going to use me. So again, we're talking about re-victimization in ways. Also, again, passive behaviors we talked about, and a fear of conflict. So I'm going to just go along with everything you say. I can't bring anything up. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of even saying no. Another thought in terms of like re-victimization, it's like my body is not my own. So someone has violated me and crossed over a boundary, and therefore I continue to allow that to happen. So again, re-victimization occurs. Impact on marital relationships. I'm going to push away from my spouse. I'm going to distrust my spouse even if there's nothing going on. I'm going to have self-doubt, and also question, why is he with me? Again, a lot of passivity happens. I have no power, I have no rights, I have no control, so I'm not verbalizing my feelings. The shame continues. Again, we talked about the body's not my own. It's been violated. It doesn't feel like mine. It's not mine. This distorted view of people and over-sexualized intent. So maybe I think of people as wanting, that are maybe not innocent, but they're not thinking about sexual intent, but I view them as maybe their intent is bad. Okay. Rehearses the abuse during intimacy that happens, and also relives the abuse during intimacy, meaning if my husband is forceful, I am reliving that experience again. Another one is unwilling to try anything like new ways of being sexually intimate, and easily startled when I'm touched. So again, if I'm not expecting something, I'm going to have this startle response. Okay. Actually, sexual abuse has an impact on also spirituality. So if I've been sexually abused or assaulted, what's my view of God? Is God viewed as loving, good, powerful, trustworthy? We view God through two things, actually. I think we view God, or whatever you believe your higher power is, through either how my parents are or, definitely abuse. So if I've been abused or assaulted, or even with child abuse too, I'm viewing God in the same way that I've been treated. So if I have harsh parents who are abusive, I'm seeing God as harsh and abusive. If I have loving parents, I'm seeing God as loving and good. Does that make sense? Okay. And what does the abuse teach the victim? I'm unworthy. I'm dirty. I am defective. I'm not loved and will never be loved. That's what it. Okay.
I have a quick question, Barbara. Let's say, for example, we are witnessing some of these effects happening on, let's say, either our friend, our child, our spouse. What are some ways that we may be able to approach asking them properly without victimizing them if, anything is going on, or, if they trying to get them to open up to us about maybe potentially something going on in their life?
I think, first of all, if I have a good relationship, that helps. Like, I feel like I don't have a right to ask anything unless I have a good relationship. So if it's a good friend, if it's a child, yes, I think you. I'm noticing that I'm noticing that you're having trouble sleeping. I'm noticing that you're yelling and that, you're getting up with nightmares. I'm noticing. I would use the symptom. I'm noticing this. Is there, and I can ask what's going on. Actually, that's a part that we're going to get into in a little bit about. So we see some of the signs. Well, like we need to be asking. We need to be talking to, to our definitely, but to our children, but even adults. I'm noticing this. You're starting to fail your classes. I'm worried about you. What's going on? Even in that, some people will respond. I mean, it might take a while. It's hard with sexual abuse, I'll tell you why, and sexual assault, because there's so much shame with it. But I would keep saying I'm noticing. Um, when we'll talk a little bit about prevention and the way we can talk to children. But yeah, I mean, with friends, it's a little bit, I'm just thinking of the community. Um, there's so much shame. There's so much shame with sexual abuse, times the shame in our community, that it's almost like it's really going to be hard. But what I found is, okay, even with our community, I'll still work on the relationship as when I mean, I teach Sunday school, for example, and I will have kids that come and disclose this to me all the time. It's so prevalent. Um, they'll disclose it, but it's based on I built a relationship with them. They know that I love them. So if you build a relationship with someone, even though it is very shameful, and especially in our culture, I think people do tend to disclose. So if that makes any sense.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Thank
A
you.
lot a lot of times, actually, it's very interesting. A lot of times when Middle Eastern people come to my office, it's when they're about to have a child, or when they just, when they're pregnant, or they just had a child. That's a lot of times when abuse comes up. And I think it's because, like, I think it's because there was trauma. I don't want I see this thing, so this beautiful baby. And again, one of the strengths in our community is how much we love our children. Um, and I don't want to do the same thing. So that's when I'm going to come up, because something's going on. Even for men, like I feel like that also occurs with men as well. When they see their child, that's a lot of times when they come. I was physically abused, or I was sexually abused. I don't want to do that to my child. I'm so scared. So those are things that definitely occur. So even in our community, people do come and they do talk about it. And I might be the first person they told, because of this shame. Actually, usually I am, because of so much shame that they've had. Or if they've told a parent, it's usually, it was your fault. And this even, like, it's always the woman's fault. I want us to look at that. I know that we have different roles, but there's nothing in, I believe, the Quran or the Bible that says that we are unequal. No, we are equal. That's not what. I mean, I can speak more so with the Bible. It's clear that we just have different roles. God has different roles for us. But I really want that to be addressed in our community, because I think with the laws in the Middle East, sometimes I see so we do, and we do a lot of blaming. And I also think that because we were victim, like, someone, like, as a parent, like, let's say as a mother, for example, if my mother was sexually abused and physically abused, and then she was blamed for the sexual abuse and the physical abuse, I'm more likely to do the same thing. So it's a pattern, and I just want us to check that pattern. I really do. I want us to really think about that pattern because I see it a lot, and I don't just see it in terms of sexual abuse, any kind of abuse. You did something wrong. You know, that yeah, you asked for it, and especially that's so. I cringe when I hear that. I cringe when I hear that. Um, so I want us to talk a little bit about prevention. Not that there can be 100% prevention. There is not going to be. But I want us to talk a little bit about, is there something I can do to prevent some sexual abuse and sexual assault? Um, I remember when I talked about abusers and the domestic violence thing, I said no one has a sign that says I'm an abuser. I'm gonna rape you. No one has a sign like that. We don't. That's not how it works. Actually, there's something called there's a method called grooming. Okay, grooming means I'm going to develop a relationship with you in order to victimize you. Okay, I'm gonna develop a relationship, and whether it's a child or an adult, this can happen with an adult too. Um, so you know, I am going to treat you as special. You're the best thing since sliced bread. I'm gonna buy you special gifts. I am going to isolate you from everyone else, and I'm going to provide attention. I'm going to give you so much attention, give you a lot of compliments. I'm going to be very affectionate. Again, adult or child, we all want to be loved. We all want that. This is how grooming works. So, but the problem is that grooming is with intent to violate. Okay. Um, so once I've done that, so treating the victim, treating the child older than she is. With adults, it might be treating the adult in kind of having a more of a relationship, like than they actually, again, I can't, I see this with marriage. I can't wait to marry you. Um, you know, again, anything that I know about the person, I'm going to use as a way to get in there to violate. I'm going to gradually cross boundaries. Okay, so with a child, I might start with touching her leg, giving her a hug, putting my hands on her shoulders, whatever it is, and then I'm gonna continue that process till it becomes sexually intimate, and this can happen over months. And then I'm gonna use, what's used is secrecy. You can't tell anyone about this. Blame. It's your fault. It's your fault. You got me to do this to you. You got me to do this to you. And you know, even threats. If you tell your mom, I am going to hurt your family. So this works a lot with children. It does work with adults, it's just different ways. Okay, so I'm going to start with children, and then I'm going to talk about adults, adolescents, and adults. With children, okay, I know in the Middle Eastern community we don't like to talk about these subjects. I've kind of used a lot of words that we don't use in our community: sex, sexual contact, sexual abuse, sexual assault, even vaginal, all of those words. I know we don't use them in our community, but we need to start, especially if you live in the United States. No, that's not even true. Let me rephrase that. It's not even true. Even in the Middle East, you need to start having conversations with your children. Nothing's wrong with sex. Like, I don't mean it like that. I mean, like, nothing's, well, in the future. But we make it such a shameful topic that we don't even talk about it. But I would talk to your children about their bodies. Your bodies are private. I mean, this you can start with 2, 3-year-olds. Your bodies are private. No one's supposed to see your body. No one is ever supposed to touch you except, like if mommy's watching you, washing you, or So we can start with doing that. Start early. Again, you know, I have I'm seeing someone who started to be sexually abused at the age of 4 and raped. Like, it was not I mean, maybe when she was like sexually abused at 4 and raped and progressively raped. Like, so, you know, and again, it was even someone that she knew very well. So I would start very early. Good touch, bad touch, even like, you know, talk about what's bad touch, what's good touch, and who can touch you. Like mommy can give you a hug, but nobody else can give you a hug, or mommy and daddy can give you a hug, and that's it. Like, um, also teach them to say no. We don't teach women to say no in our culture. Women are supposed to always be compliant. We need to start teaching women to say no. And it starts with young kids. It starts with 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. They go through the terrible everything is no. Actually, that's okay. They want independence. They want control. I mean, it gets very annoying after a while, but I mean, we need to kind of talk about ways to deal with that. But um, there's when they say no and they want to control themselves, that's great. I wish we continued that. It's not too late. It's not too late. If your child is 10, 15, 20, doesn't matter. We should be talking about these subjects anyway. Okay, and I talked about revictimization. And I see it so clearly in our community. Again, we wait. So a child gets victimized, we know about it. They get re-victimized. They get the third time re-victimized, and then they come for treatment. We could avoid a lot of this stuff. I had one family come in after 3 suicide attempts. Their child had 3. They're adolescent. She was almost an adult. 3 suicide attempts, but they had refused therapy. So it's not too late. We can have these conversations at any point. Okay. It's not strangers anymore. Again, we talked about 93% are people we know. So it's not just strangers. It's mostly people we know. People we would be surprised by. Like some people that, in all honesty, sometimes when kids come to me and say, and maybe once or twice I knew the person, I was so surprised. It's not going to be someone that you're not going to suspect it. Let's put it that way. I would also talk to my child about there's no secrets between adult and child. There's no secrets. You need to tell me everything. Like, there's no such thing as a secret. We blame our kids a lot when they say, no, I'm not going to hug you, or we say it's disrespectful. But let me tell you something. How many times have I heard that, you know what, a child was sexually abused. The child was afraid of that person, but I made them hug them. If your child is kind of acting different around someone, I would be asking why. What's going on? And I wouldn't force anyone. No, it's not disrespectful not to hug. you know, I don't know. This is just my thought. Like, it's, again, I know that I was brought up in this culture and it would have been disrespectful. I'm just saying to you, if I were going to bring up my own child right now, no, I would say, you know what? And I would ask if his or her behavior is different. I would ask, what's going on? Do not shame your children for talking to you about this subject. Destructive messages are, you brought this on. He did not mean it. She did not mean it. He did not mean it. You did something. You deserve it. These are things that I've heard. We are creating more. It's not. Obviously, it's not true. I can't even say that. Obviously it's not true. No one deserves to be abused. And a child doesn't know anything. We talk about 5-year-olds that. What does a 5-year-old know? I mean, I saw something on the Middle Eastern TV. My parents have it. I don't know, the Arabic channels. I saw a grandmother who blamed the 5-year-old for her uncle sexually abusing her. That's ridiculous, and was severely punished after that. Be present, be supportive, be understanding, be protective. Never leave your child with anyone else unless you absolutely trust them. Even then, I'm going to tell you, in my field, after hearing what I hear, I would never leave my child with anyone. Because it's not even, let's say I have a brother and I trust my brother. How do I know who's at his house? So I would never leave, again, that's my own personal thing, but at least don't leave them with anyone you don't trust. Stranger danger is real, both, and we can talk to kids and specifically adolescents in person and online. Don't go up to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. Um, don't give any specific information online, especially adolescents. Grooming happens online now. Like, oh, like you don't know who you're talking to. I have to tell the kids, and I've had a rape occur because of this. So strangers are dangerous too. Um, Teach them to stay in groups. Never go anywhere alone. A perpetrator is going to isolate the weak child, the child that doesn't have self confidence. That's what he's going to try to do. Get them to be alone so he can victimize them. Um, Parents, don't be naive and fall prey to. I think we can do that. We can be manipulated by someone's words. I can pick up Johnny from school, or I can help you out, or maybe maybe I can teach Johnny some stuff. No, 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 no. We can we can fall prey to that too. Um, Boys are victims too, and I've seen this in my office. Boys are definitely victims too. Be watchful, like know what's going on. Be involved in your child's life. Sometimes what I will tell you a trigger for me, and it's probably because I don't have my own children and I wanted to have children. So please, please forgive me for this. But if I have a mom who's a stay-at-home mom and she has no clue about what's happening with her kid, that triggers me. Like, I understand usually we have two-parent incomes. Two parents are working, but try as much as possible to be watchful, to see what's going on. Who are your children hanging out with? And this should be an ongoing conversation. This is not a one-time conversation. We are talking about this a lot. Okay.
Here's
I'm
a
gonna.
question for you, Barbara.
Mhm.
With Halloween coming up, and I know that a lot of people in the community and outside of the community celebrate Halloween and they like to go trick or treating. Do you have any tips on how parents can help keep their children safe
I would
during
go with.
Halloween?
I would go with my children, and go in groups. If they're adolescents, they can't. No one should be going alone. And if they're young kids, a parent needs to be along, with them. I mean, adolescents probably don't prefer a parent to be with them, but if it depends on. No, it doesn't depend. Actually, I was going to say it depends on where you live. No, it doesn't depend. I know I grew up in a really nice area in Bergen County, and I almost got kidnapped. So it does not depend. I almost witnessed my cousin get kidnapped in Jersey City, but that's not where I grew up. I grew up in a different area. But so it doesn't matter whether it's Jersey City or Saddle River. It doesn't absolutely has nothing to. It doesn't matter. It can happen anywhere. So, but if adolescents, if they're in a big group, that's fine. I think. With children, definitely, I would not leave children, even in groups, to go alone.
Thank you.
Okay. I know we don't have that much time, so I'm just going to say something about adults. One of the things, I obviously don't go anywhere alone. Don't, especially college students who, sometimes I hear about like rape that occurs when someone leaves the party, they're drunk with another person. That's not a good idea. Don't leave your drink unattended. But one of the big things is, well, two or three big things I want to say. The first thing is I always hear I felt like something was wrong. I felt like something was going to happen. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel fully comfortable. Trust your gut. It's there for a reason. Okay. The other thing is say no. You have the right to say no. It's your body, your decisions. You have the right to say no. I know, again, we're brought up in a society that we're not told to say no. The other thing I would say about that is, don't be pressured to do anything. And again, it isn't even with adults. It is people that you know. So, just be careful. I know you can't prevent it completely. I know that. I also know that, again, re-victimization happened, and even if you want to say no or you're scared, you're going to be in shock. It's not like I'm going to know how to react right away. Probably going to be in shock at first. But if if you can get to your senses, actually, if you can trust your gut, don't get into the situation. If your gut tells you, again, your gut's not always going to tell you, but if something feels uncomfortable, get out of the situation and do what you can. Yell, scream, do what you can to get out of the situation. It is not shameful for you to have been sexually abused. That is a crime that was committed. It is shameful on the perpetrator, not for the woman. And again, I hate that mentality that we have. I love a lot of things. I love that we love our children. There's wonderful things that I can take from our community. But the one thing I would not take is how we see women, or we re-victimize women, we blame women for everything. I think that's the poor thing that I wouldn't take. But otherwise, again, there's a lot of wonderful things. Okay. Is there anything else?
Well, I think that was a really, really very impactful and very strong presentation. And thank you so much for all of the wonderful information that you gave us. That is absolutely crucial for anyone and everyone to know about, and especially with starting a conversation within our community. So thank you so much for all this wonderful information. And hopefully we can actually start a conversation within our community, especially. As you mentioned, it is extremely important that we talk about these issues, and that all of this terminology is just brought up within the community. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the wonderful webinar. We really appreciate it. Again, to everyone who is watching, please remember to donate. No amount of money is small enough, and we really cannot thank you all. We really cannot thank you enough for all of your support, and we wouldn't have been able to do any of this without you guys. So thank you all so very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Barbara.
Thank you, Emma.
I look forward to seeing you at the next presentation.
Thanks.
Have a nice day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.